Hello football! Today we have Levante Barcelona 3-3, Torino Milan 0-7, Atletico Madrid Real Sociedad 2-1. So let's start with the Levante Barcelona match, where Koeman and his team just cut off their own eggs. There is no other name for it. They cut off and deprived themselves of the championship. Just natural losers, and moreover, all this failure can be safely attributed to Kingsley Coman. Barca's starting plan was correct, everything was fine there, because there was nothing to invent. Even Dembele as a conditional lateral was in the right place here, because Levante is an opponent that is convenient for Barcelona. That is, yes, it is a middle peasant, they're lower in level than Barcelona, but at the same time they do not close in the same kind of dead bus. They always have space behind their backs, hence Dembele could use this space, and Barcelona developed its attacks mainly through it, and he was one of the most dangerous players who terrorized the Levante defense the most. Accordingly, here Messi could do his magic, because there was also soil for this, hence Pedri's bursting into the penalty area also worked perfectly. He could easily score twice in the first half and bury the intrigue in this match. That is, for Barcelona from the start and whistle everything was perfect. There was no need to include even high pressure. Here he had to control the ball in the center and develop attacks in any way convenient for you, and against Levante it is not super difficult, even in their half of the field. In a word, Barca outplayed the Levante in class without inventing any intricate moves. But, my friends, it was only in the first half. Everything is fine there, the starting plan was wonderful, everything was fine, but the most natural games begins in the second half, when Koeman already had to take coaching actions during the game, that is to make substitutions. What was going on here? Araujo gets injured, and it would seem nothing so terrible for the coach. What's there to invent? Well, let Mingueza out on the field, right in position. They are generally similar in type. Mingueza will be able to perform the same functions. Yes, he is in level worse than Araujo, but at least he is in good shape now. Just let Mingueza out and that's it. But Koeman is not a simple old man. He needs something more sophisticated, something more risky. So he releases Sergio Roberto, who is not ready at all and half sick, who then had to be changed again. And at the same time, coach of Levante, realizing that there was nothing more to lose, he began to drive his fighters into the attack. What did he do exactly? First, defensive midfielder Melero began to join the penalty area under the closer, as say the conditional Goretzka in Bavaria. And secondly, Levante includes high good pressing. And what is the bottom line? Thanks to this constant pulling out of the defensive players into the penalty area, several dangerous moments are created. One of them ends with a goal, and who played against this defensive player at the moment when the goal was scored? Of course, Sergio Roberto. And note how he lost. He simply lost physically. He was physically unable to fight with him, and if Mingueza were in this place, Levante simply could not turn this maneuver so easily, because Mingueza is physically strong, and against this defensive midfielder he would be physically struggled nominally. And secondly, thanks to high pressure, Messi now makes mistakes when leaving the defense zone and gives a pass back directly to the opponent. That is, both changes made by Levante coach bear fruit, and in just 3 minutes Levante restored the balance in the universe. But, my friends, this is not all. Furthermore, Father Koeman said, looked and understood like, yeah, I was wrong, again this mistake needs to be corrected, and what does he do? He realizes that Mingueza is not enough, he releases Mingueza, but instead of Pedri and Sergio Roberto he leaves on the field, and he keeps him not just somewhere on the field. He does what he does. He takes Sergio Roberto and moves him to the center of midfield. Moreover, on an inconvenient flank for him. That is, yes, Sergio Roberto, whose form is very bad, and he's also placed on an inconvenient flank for him. And for Sergio Roberto, this is just a natural double penetration. And what Sergio Roberto gives? Nothing. No dynamics, no pressure, no quick transfers, no control of the ball. Sergio Roberto does not give anything, because, well, he is simply not in a very good shape. I don't blame him. And Riqui Puig, who could add to the game all this, what does Kingsley Coman? He releases Riqui Puig literally for the last 5 minutes, although he could have been released much earlier. So, in general, what did Koeman need to do? It was necessary to release Mingueza instead of Araujo in the second half, and Levante's first goal would not have happened, because it is difficult to beat Mingueza on the second floor, and perhaps with the second goal he would have played more reliably, and then it was necessary to look further on the game. If Levante does not score, then we do not change anything, everything is fine, we stick to the original plan, but if Levante turns on high pressure or scores, you need to change something right away. What is needed? We remove Pedri and release Riqui Puig into the center of the field. For what? In order to maintain control. If they are pressing high, we need to get out of the pressure. We need an additional player with a good pass, with good decision making, who will create dynamics in the center of the field. And Riqui Puig is such a player that if he would be in the center of the field not for 5 minutes but a little more, for at least for 20 or 25 minutes, in the center of the field, then Barcelona's control would be better. They would get out of the pressure much better, and there would be no mistakes like committed by Messi. In short, Koeman decided not to be friends with substitutions from Barca any longer, especially at the end of the season. Well, natural, slow-witted. Go ahead. Here we have Atletico Madrid, Real Sociedad. A match with a very, very valid ending for fans of mattress covers, and the main indicator is how Diego Simeone runs straight into the locker room after the match. And now, for me personally, there is an intrigue left. If his valve is pinched from nerves or his urine explodes with happiness. The rest of the questions after the match are of no interest to anyone. Okay, I'm just kidding. Of course I'm interested. In general, this match it was similar to what Barcelona showed against Levante. Whereas Barcelona dominated in the first half and could score 3 or 4, and in the second half the middle peasant just turned everything upside down and the course of the game changed. The situation was the same here. In the first half Atletico dominated, well, in terms of the quality of the game, it was comfortable for them to play. Real Sociedad attacks, they play on counter-attacks, everything is fine with Atletico. It's convenient for them to play. There were 3 or 4 moments that needed to 100% to complete. Everything is fine. But in the second half, Real Sociedad is already turning upside down the game, and now we need to talk a little more about this. I just cited as an example that these two matches are similar in this regard. Simeone, of course, put out the main clip, but there was no basic clearly defined scheme. Here we saw both 4-3-3 and 4-4-2 schemes, where Hermoso was on the left and Carrasco switched between midfield and attack. But there were also episodes when Atletico was completely locked up, where Carrasco sank very deep. In general, it was like a hybrid version of Atletico. Real Sociedad also has several schemes according to which it is convenient for them to play, but the main one is still 4-2-3-1, where they can control the ball, control the opponent, possess a lot, dominate and create, and then the coach decided not to invent. He decided to play on his strength and not to prepare specifically for the opponent and neutralize them, namely on his own, and Diego Simeone was ready for this. He was comfortable. Real Sociedad owns the ball, Sociedad controls, Sociedad makes a mistake in the defense and made a hole. Well, what could be better for Atletico? That is, it was the classic game of Atletico, where the opponent has the ball, we have a reliable defense and quick counterattacks, both through Correa and through Llorente, which no one could stop. So that you understand, by the 16th minute, Atletico was already leading in strikes 6-0, and almost all of these were good and deliberate attacks. But, my friends, just as much as Atletico was good and beautiful in the first half, just as bad as squalid it was in the second one. This was preceded, I think, by 3 main factors. Firstly, the motivation of Real Sociedad. Well, you know, they have nothing to lose. After the first half, they lose 0-2. You have to take risks. You have to go forward. And hell with it. Whether we'll lose 0-7 or 0-2, the difference will not change anything. The only difference will be that we can either try to crush Atletico and still win back, or we can also continue playing without changing anything, but we will not get any desired result, and there we have a fight for the Europe League. So we go take risks more assertively, and that's the first factor. And the second one, of course, it's the tactical moves from Real Sociedad coach. He sees that Atletico is quite simply revealing their defense. The head coach, after about an hour of the game, switched to a system with 3 central players, which actually happens quite rarely in Sociedad. And now, after 60 minutes, Atletico struck only 2 blows, while Sociedad as many as 9, which is interesting. Absolutely all these blows were from the penalty area. That is, yes, there is nothing particularly veiled. He just banally removed 1 player from the attacking group and added him to the defense in order to prevent the quick counterattacks of Atletico. That's all, in principle. There were no more changes in the game. Further ahead, everything remained the same. There were the same combinations, the same maneuvers, the same possession, the same dominance, long-range strikes, everything was the same. It was just a -1 player. Well, in fact, when you have so much possession of the ball, you surround your opponent's penalties so much, there in principle, whether you have +1 player or -1, the difference will not be noticeable. But if you add this player to the defense group, then accordingly you prevent yourself from quick counterattacks of the opponent. Well, and the third factor, which also influenced the fact that such global changes took place in the second half. Atletico came out initially to dry the game. Well, it really was just such an impression, and it turns out that the Sociedad coach worsened the defense. And on the other hand, Atletico also came out just to dry the game, and I repeat, Real Sociedad did not change anything in terms of attack, nothing. But at the same time, they began to press more, and Atletico even more squeezed into its penalty area. And voila, Real Sociedad created at least 3 good chances that should have scored. But the fans of Atletico Madrid can say thanks to Jan de Cloud that he did not allow this. And if it were not him, if, let's say, there was any Kepa there, they would have made holes in the whole net 100%. And finally, let's talk about Milan, which took and tore poor Torino and even away 0-7. Usually, when such a loud event occurs, any tactics, any ideas fade into the background, but this is not such a case. Here Pioli did his best, and now you will understand what I mean. By the way, Milan did not score so much for 25 years. This is certainly not so important information, but just interesting. As for the lineups of Milan, it would seem that there are not many changes. But how the hell did they affect the way Milan played? And in general, what happened in this match? Look, it turns out there was no Ibrahimovic. He dropped out due to injury. Rebic came out instead of him and nominally occupied the position of the center forward. But this is only nominally. This is the first change. The second one is that there was no Salamakers, who could not take part because of getting too many yellow cards. Therefore, his position was taken by Castillejo, and again it would seem that there are not many changes, not so significant, but look how the game has changed after that. Here I must also say that Salamakers differ from Castillejo. Salamakers is valuable in that he brings balance and rather maintains the center of the field, and Castillejo is still more focused on attack, often drag the balls, climbs into dribbling, joins the penalty area, etc. And just because of this, for example, a penalty was earned. So, as I said, Milan's games in this match has changed. But in what exactly? This is the most interesting thing. Look, Rebic came out instead of Ibrahimovic nominally in the position of the central forward. And this is an important moment. It would seem that he probably came out to just score and that's it. But not only. Here, if for example Pioli would like to adhere to the usual model of the game, he would simply release Mandzukic instead of Ibrahimovic and that's it. That is, the game would not have changed. Structurally, it would be the same Milan as we are used to seeing. But here Pioli turns on his intuition and some kind of insight and releases Rebic. For what? And in general, what does the presence of Rebic in this position give? Of course, this is movement. He is more variable than Ibrahimovic, and he can, for example, move to the flank, taking the players away with him, which gives a chance to connect and move to the penalty area of Theo Hernandez. So the score was opened in the match, that is when he shifted and struck a long-range strike. In other episodes of the contrary, Rebic can load the area in front of the penalty area, and this is also a very powerful idea, which again can give freedom to the flanking players, because in addition to Rebic, there is Diaz, Çalhanoğlu, and periodically connecting Kessier on the field at the same time. And if all these players press into one zone, then all attention is drawn exactly there, and you can turn on the flanks. Moreover, Milan, in addition to Hernandez, also has Castillejo, who is also aimed at the penalty area. Also, no one can sell the penetrating and discerning pass from Rebic because his vision of the field is excellent. In this match, for example, there were a couple of such moments. For example, remember when he gave such a cool pass to Calabria, but unfortunately he could not score because there was a minimal offside position. That is, it would seem such a small detail, just the presence of such a player as a Rebic in the position of a conditional center forward, but with special functions. And how did this affect the game? And Rebic is really the main character in this match, and all this huge score is his merit, and even if he did not score anything at all, he was still the main character of the game. I will also note one more point, now regarding Hernandez. Today the defender was marked with a double, and it seems to me it was not an accident, because today he was given quite little attention due to the actions that we already described. And this confirms his personal ownership. Usually it is in the range of 4 or 6%, but here it was only 2.4. Why? Just because everything here was ingenious and simple. Usually, yes, for Milan, Hernandez is such a motor. If he was given the ball, he dragged the ball along the flank. This is one of the ways to drag the ball to the other side of the field. Milan deliberately did not do this right there. That is, the idea was as follows. Move the ball and all the opponent's attention to some zone. It might be in the center, it might be in the other flank, but Theo Hernandez should always be free. For what? Just for these well-timed inclusions in the penalty area, for shifting in order to support the attack somewhere in another zone where the opponent's attention is not so close. And pay attention, for example, when the first goal was scored, who held Hernandez? Who looked to him? No one. He was just the one as much as possible isolated from everyone. In the end, these ideas were enough for Milan to score 2 goals. Then Torino himself brings himself a third out of the blue and was forced to go forward. And then everything goes according to the classics. They go forward, open up and get their butt kicked in with counterattacks. Here the main thing is not to settle further with substitutions like Koeman, and thank God Pioli is not sick with this Koemanovirus. On the contrary, everything is perfect, each replacement straightens the team and brings benefits. For example, Meite comes out instead of Benasser, and it could seem that Benasser higher in level, Benasser is an important part of the team, but at the same time this very Meite comes out and there is no loss of quality for the team. He played just as well in position, then Leao comes out just under counterattacks, and what he noted with. That's right, noted by the assist. Goes to the topic, the most suitable moment for his manner of playing. Then Krunic comes out instead of Brahim Diaz. What is he doing? Right, 2 assists. So each substitution, everything is in the subject. Great, of course. If you look at the statistics there, Torino might seem to be outplaying there. Maybe Milan bounced back. It can be like that. Let's look. If I'm not mistaken, there are 14 blows from Torino. But 7 of these 14, that was just hit the sparrow somewhere. Well, in general, as usual, in short, Milan pleased me. Milan is great, and it's not just some kind of big coincidence that Milan was lucky while Torino was bad. Yes, to some extent, of course, it was lucky to score like this a lot, but this was preceded by precisely tactical maneuvers and moments from Pioli himself.